What's up, guys? Mike here with the RWO PDR podcast, the real world order of PDR. We've got a motivational kind of episode tonight, episode 67. But first, let me introduce my special guest. He is a Harvard graduate. He spent 25 years in the U.S. Air Force. He's flown over 1,400 missions. His bogey playlist consists of Danger Zone from Kenny Loggins and Right Now from Van Halen. Bikers get a tattoo of his face. He is my friend and special guest. Let me welcome everybody, Mr. Shawn Dawley, everybody. Shawn, welcome to the RWO PDR podcast.
Thanks, buddy.
Man.
And let me assure you all that some of what he said was true. You decide which was accurate and which was bogus, because I do not claim all that bio.
So, guys, let me introduce. I did introduce Shawn, but Shawn is a really good friend of mine. We've been friends for years. We met boating, and Shawn is now. Shawn, I'm just gonna let you tell you a little bit about yourself instead of me telling everybody.
Okay, yeah, buddy, no problem. So currently, my day-to-day is I am a keynote speaker. Sometimes people call it motivational. Friends of mine who knew me from my previous life, when they find out that that's what I do, they have this picture of like the old Chris Farley, Matt Foley character, like, you're living in the van down by the river, right? So I spend some of my time in front of big audiences on big stages, but a lot of the time I'm doing workshops for companies or other organizational clients that just want me to come in and help them with any number of issues that I'm sure the people that are watching can relate to. Better communication within the company, crisis management, resiliency, strategic planning, all the stuff that any business person deals with. But I've only really been doing that for a couple of years, as a full-time profession. Like you said, I spent 25 years in the Air Force and then popped out of that, was in the corporate world as an executive for a while. Decided to stop making money for other people, maybe make a little bit more for myself. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Shawn, talk a little bit about your military background, man. If you don't, you kind of touched on it.
Yeah. So when I was 17, I barely cobbled together enough credits to graduate from a public school in Indiana.
I can relate.
was not a good K through 12 student. On another podcast, we could maybe get into some of the, reasons why that might have been. But, I was very fortunate, joined the Air Force, and that provided me a great opportunity to maybe re-examine some of the excuses I've been making for myself. I kind of flipped the switch, dedicated myself a little bit more, and was a mechanic. So I started out as an aircraft mechanic, which I did for 4 years. And when I wasn't working on the plane during the day, I was going to school at night. Yeah. And once I got a degree in aeronautics, I went to pilot training. But I will tell people, I was not good at fixing planes. I figured out I was better at breaking them. And some people think like, well, how can that be? That how possible could that be? I have a limited mechanical aptitude, so I am able to change my oil. Yeah. I can charge a battery. I can, fix a flat tire. But you would not want to put your family in a car that I had changed the brake pads on. Right?
Yeah,
like they wouldn't be responsible. Right? So fortunately, the Air Force kind of saw it the same way. And then once I went to pilot training, that's where I spent the majority of those 25 years was as a pilot.
I did not know that. I didn't know you were a mechanic. Or a plane mechanic.
Yeah, I was a mechanic, but barely.
Yeah. Well, it's part of it. So. Yeah. So anyway, Shawn, we haven't hung out in a couple of years. We've both been busy, and that's just how I am with friends. If I haven't seen you in a couple of years, we'd catch right up, and we're just like the day we,
no worries.
Last time we seen each other. Man, I really want to. We talked about your background in Air Force. We will get into what you're doing now. Okay. And the other thing I want to tell my guys, my listeners, Shawn was in a situation going to Italy. Talk about the boats, the cruise ship situation. Yeah. Really interesting. And it kind of ties in with what he does now. I mean, as far as the military type situation, you kind of handled it in a I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So in February of 2020, my wife and I boarded a cruise ship for a 30-day cruise that was going to bounce around the Caribbean, head across the Atlantic, and then hit some ports in the Mediterranean, and dump us into Italy, right? So it's going to be this amazing trip. And in February of 2020, you might have seen on page B6 of the newspaper maybe a little story about some odd respiratory virus in a place called Hubei, China, in Wuhan province. Well, COVID. By the time, we're 10, 12 days into this, the world is beginning to come to grips with this thing we now call COVID-19.
Right.
The coronavirus. So anyway, a 30-day cruise in February and March does not have a significant amount of young people on it. My wife and I at the time were still in our 40s. We were kids. Most of the people on that ship were, 60s and 70s in large measure, 80s in some cases. So because of the petri dish environment that cruise ships are,
obviously,
I think there ended up being, after all was said and done, like 26 or 27 people died, on the cruise ship. Well, this, again, was also when the world was beginning to kind of spin off its axis, because in March of 2020, we didn't know, is this going to be like the zombie apocalypse? Is this how it all ends? And on that cruise ship, it was an interesting, almost social experiment that you would never be allowed to do because of ethics with people. But this was unfolding in real time. And it began to have some semblance of familiarity of when I would go on deployments. So like the first time I go to, like, say, the Balkans or Iraq or Afghanistan, in these heightened emotional environments, in the absence of information, people will just begin to manufacture it.
Yeah, exactly.
And especially in a day and age when we all carry, our connectivity to the internet in our pocket.
Right.
It was amazing how quickly rumors could start to fly on the ship. Like, as soon as somebody looks out and realizes that we're no longer pointing east, we're pointing south, within 5 minutes, the story is running rampant throughout the ship that we're not going to Italy because I heard that if you're over the age of 50, you can't get on a ventilator, and they're just going to park us out here in the Mediterranean.
That's
and
insane, man.
Yeah,
well,
so,
I know we all lived through it.
And so one of the things that started to happen was because of previous experience I spent doing humanitarian support missions and domestic operations in the U.S., I had some inkling of what was probably happening at the DoD, Homeland Security, Department of Transportation. And so I began to, without any inside intelligence, I just began to convey to people what might be happening.
Yeah.
And they seemed to really appreciate the breadth of, I dare say, reason into what was otherwise a pretty, frantic, rumor-filled, environment. And now, again, there were a couple of people on the ship.
I can imagine
That's
crazy.
Were very much inclined to just stir the pot. Right? Like the person that walks into your office, or somebody that walks up to you says, okay, like, first things first, and I mean this, like, seriously, I hate drama. Like, no, you don't. I can tell by the way you said that. You love that shit. And so there was a couple of people like that, and you take somebody that is prone to drama, and you put them into what is actually a dramatic situation. That's just going to light their fire.
It's going to escalate.
So tamping down rumors became like a primary duty of mine as a fare paying passenger on this vessel. I ended up getting co-opted into work.
So you're on this vessel, and obviously, you just basically explained it. The COVID-19 outbreak was on the cusp, about to happen. It was literally, and Shawn is with his wife on a cruise ship going to Italy, and then the freaking pandemic it just started to linger inside the cruise ship. And someone passed away, if I remember the story.
Yeah.
One person.
So what was happening was people were getting sick, but people get sick on cruise ships all the time.
Yeah, obviously. Right? Yeah.
And so what was happening was there is only so much medical care that you can be provided on a cruise ship. Yeah. A lot of people may not realize that most cruise ships have morgues on them. People die on cruise ships.
I've never been on a cruise.
And
so
what was happening was people whose condition seemed to be deteriorating were being dropped off at different ports along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not necessarily being communicated to passengers, which I guess maybe nor should it have been.
Yeah.
But then passengers are checking their phone and they're looking at the news and they're reading things like Costa Luminosa passenger who disembarked in Grand Cayman Islands dies. Costa Luminosa passenger who disembarked in San Juan, Puerto Rico dies.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, well, these are the places we've been going to. And so the cruise ship was letting people off who were in bad shape, and then they were dying on land.
Oh,
and
man.
then people were finding out about it on the ship just by checking news feeds.
Yeah.
And so then, I mentioned the age of many of the passengers. People that are in their 70s and 80s have children in their 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody in their 70s and 80s is real big on technology, right? And they don't live on their phones.
Right. They don't have.
They don't want to be on TikTok and instant messaging. And so my daughter reached out to me at one point when this was really starting to kind of break loose, and it was looking kind of potentially dire. And she said, "Hey, Dad, somebody created a Facebook page for people to just for your ship.
Mm-hmm.
It's on Facebook, and I think it was called
just for the ship. Okay.
Yeah, the Costa Luminosa.
Interesting.
Some like middle-aged person whose parents were on the ship creates the Facebook page, and then several hundred people joined it. And she said, "Can you dial rooms from your room?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay, well, this lady has asked several times if somebody could check on her parents. They're in cabin, I'm making it up, 1738.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, stand by." So I called the room number. "Hello, hi, ma'am. This is Shawn Dawley. I'm a passenger with you. Your daughter, Bernice, was asking. Oh, we're fine. Tell her we're fine. You can tell her dad is tired of losing at bridge to me or whatever. But we're doing fine." So then I send that message back to my daughter via text.
Yeah.
She then puts it on the Facebook page. Other people see that, and then I get a text from my daughter 10 minutes later. "Okay, can you now check on these 3 people in these 3 rooms?" And so what happened was my wife had brought her laptop. I used her laptop and I built an Excel sheet. And what I told my daughter was, just feed me the names and cabin numbers of these people that they're not able to communicate with.
Yeah.
And every day I will check in with them. And I'm making notes, my little Excel sheet, keep everything.
Dude, I mean, you're on this cruise ship. I mean, what?
I got nothing else to do,
right?
And so then because of that, I'm feeding information to people to let them know, I personally talked to your dad. Your dad said he is doing A-okay, and I believe him.
Right.
That seemed to provide some level of comfort, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, eventually some news outlets picked up on that, and I guess they kept seeing my name. And so they reached out to my daughter and my sister and to set up some, live interviews from the cruise ship. Because again, the story they were being fed was that, it was basically the Titanic. We'd hit the iceberg, or sinking. And again, there is a deadly virus running rampant on the ship.
Yeah, I mean,
but
everybody was panicking.
But the crew was doing the best they could.
Yeah.
Given the situation they were provided.
That's phenomenal. So when that was going on, I had a boat at the, me and Shawn are boaters, and I had sold my boat at that time. So you all went on that cruise. Of course, the pandemic hit, and I'm weird. Everybody, I'm weirded out by this whole pandemic, trying to figure things out. And I had heard about this just from the friends, and I was like, well, I hope they're okay, But I didn't realize you were on the news. Like Fox News? Yeah. I didn't know that. And one of our mutual friends showed me that. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't even know at the time it was going on. So,
yeah. So kind of surreal, because they were, at the time we were in the Mediterranean. So we were about, I think, 5 hours ahead of East Coast time.
Yeah.
So to do a live primetime spot at 7 p.m., I'm on my iPhone 6 with my AirPods at midnight on the cruise ship. And my wife is like, "It's too bright, turn it down." And she's sleeping, she's in the bed.
Yeah.
But I did that one live, but a couple of other news outlets, not to be named, anchors not to be named, they recorded it. And I guess I just didn't make for good television, because they would ask me, like one guy in particular, he's somebody you all know. He asked me 3 different ways what it was like on the ship, but he would always couch it in terms of, we understand that you're being treated like prisoners. It's like a prison. They're like prison-like conditions.
Yeah.
And again, I would have to delineate between the reality of the virus and the conditions under which we were treated. And those were 2 different things, and one could be bad and one could be fine. And about, the second time or third time I was asked, well, we understand that it's harsh and Spartan and it's prison-like conditions. I said, listen, between breakfast and lunch and dinner, which we get to pick a la carte the night before.
Right. So
they push around a wine cart and a dessert tray.
Yeah.
And if you ask for white wine, they serve it to you chilled. And if you ask for the cheesecake, they ask you if you do or don't want chocolate sauce drizzled on it. Okay, if we get to the point where they're forcing me to drink room temperature white wine and I don't get chocolate sauce, maybe then it's like a prison.
That's horrible.
Well, I'll be darned, man. He does it again. And so finally I said something to the effect of, well, I get to spend all day, in this jail cell with my smoking hot wife. So if you had told me this is what prison was like, I would have started a life of crime, years ago. And, laughed it off. But again, I guess I wasn't giving them the dire panic that probably makes for more compelling television.
Right.
So if it bleeds, it leads.
I believe that. I do, Shawn. I totally, that opens up a lot of eyes, actually. But like that was, I was shocked when I saw you on TV, because I was like, so obviously Fox News reached out to you and you gave your interview with them in your cabin and kind of telling the real story, like what's going on here. We're all good. And you, I know you had helped a lot of people. Like I did. That's what I'd heard from Shinko and I'm sorry, his wife, Shinko. And we heard that and I was like, wow, man. So that basically used something you learned probably from the military or growing up.
So, maybe during my first war, I was more prone to this, but I've come to appreciate that in a crisis, the first casualty is usually the truth. Like when all hell breaks loose, one of the first things to go is, accurate information.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, some people have a tendency in the absence of information to just begin to invent it. And so one of the things that we always would have to do when you're doing mission planning for, like, let's say a combat sortie or what have you, is you cannot be afforded the luxury of wishing away things you don't want to be true or wishing into existence things that you wish were. You just have to objectively analyze the battle space for what it is, determine what you can and can't live with, look at the risks, come up with a plan to either eliminate the risk, avoid the risk, or accept the risk. But you have to do that with a sober, objective mindset. And I think that that's probably true for 99% of life, right? That's true for business. I wish interest rates were lower, but they're not. I wish I didn't have these competitors, but I do. I wish my employees weren't disgruntled, but they are. The second that we decide, well, this information about this environment is making me uncomfortable, so I'll just pretend like this doesn't exist or that this does when it's not. So that, if anything, if there's any parallels, it was that. Like, okay, I see the chaos around me. I see people's emotional states becoming heightened. This feels a little familiar. These are like the lieutenants who are flying combat sorties for the first time. Right. Yeah. They're adorable. They're cute. One day when they's all grown up, they'll figure out this isn't so bad. You're good. You're good. Just take a breath.
Well, we won't let the cruise ship story take up the whole show, but basically you guys got to Italy at some point, correct?
So we ended up in Marseille.
Okay.
That's where we stopped. And the U.S. government, made a phone call to French President Emmanuel Macron and figured out a one-time get out of Europe free flight for us. So
That's awesome, man.
We got a chartered 787, and I think we were the only flight out of Europe. Because if you remember, that was back during the, President Trump, he's like,
shut it down.
All right, nobody's coming in from China. Nobody's coming in from Europe. Everything's shut down. Which, again, people after the fact can say yay or nay. But listen, man, when you're a leader, you can only play the hand you're dealt.
Yeah.
And that was not an outlandish course of action in March of 2020.
Right.
We were just fortunate that our government came for us because that was an international itinerary. There was a lot of people on that cruise ship that did not have American passports, and their governments did not come for them.
I'm sure they didn't. Yeah,
I was glad. I was glad to be a United States citizen.
Yeah, exactly.
With that problem,
dude, that's
because plenty of the
story.
friends that we made that were from all over, primarily Western Europe and then some South American countries, they were just left to kind of ride it out. Some for a couple of months in some cases.
Yeah,
nobody came for them.
That's crazy, man. That's a wild story. Yeah, I remember when that went down, man. I was glad you guys were home and I got to see you guys again. And but yeah, that's crazy, man.
I don't know about you, but when I'm on Netflix and I see a movie, oh, that's a good movie, and then it'll usually show next to the title what it's rated and then the year it came out. I'll see a movie what, 2009? That was 15 years ago? That's
freaking old, man.
But so COVID seems like that was 50 years ago to me.
It does.
It's like time
4 years ago,
slowed down because again, I can see a movie on Netflix. I felt like I just saw it yesterday, but it was a long time ago. But COVID, that cruise ship, I felt like I was 14 years old when that happened.
Well, anyways, man, Shawn, that I don't know if this is just me coming up with what I'm saying here, but that seemed like when that happened, obviously the world changed for in general with everyone. But it seemed like for me, did that spark something in you to create this business that you've created?
Maybe in an indirect way. So I had, for 25 years, on and off kind of rode the lightning. There was peaks and valleys in that career. And I wouldn't say, I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I'm not the guy that has to go rock climbing without safety gear to feel like, I've got a pulse. I don't need to skydive. And I'm not judging people who do, but I never chased pure adrenaline.
Yeah.
However, I think that on some level, because for so long, in my late teens and 20s and 30s, into my early 40s, I was preparing to go to war, at war, or getting back from war. And I think on some level that can begin to kind of not reprogram you, but you become a bit accustomed to, the rush. Yeah. And I was cognizant of that. I was cognizant that, okay, that could be a slippery slope when you need some semblance of danger to, feel like you're alive, because that can really, that could go the wrong way. Yeah. But when I left all that, went corporate, I completely understood that this new chapter is not going to come with some of the same, excitement that my previous life did. I don't want to make light of, again, COVID breaking out on a cruise ship where people died, but there was something that did evoke in me a sense of purpose, because once again, without rank, title, or responsibility, I found myself in a very informal position of leadership. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah, because we oftentimes will associate maybe a leader with a title, but we all know that there are people that don't have a title but still can exert influence. And I think that perhaps having been out of the game a little bit and then suddenly find myself like Forrest Gump, just kind of accidentally thrust into it, I thought, I guess I do kind of miss this. I kind of miss the idea of not for fortune, not for fame, serving people who have entrusted me with some degree of credibility and figuring out what can I possibly do to make their lives a little bit easier.
Right.
And so that made me think, maybe, at a time I was in my, let's see, it would have been like mid to late 40s. Like, okay, I've got enough gas in the tank. Let me try to find something that I find productive. And if I have to make money doing it, great. I'll cash the checks, but let me find something with purpose.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta love what you do. I mean, that's kind of what the dent repair industry, and obviously this is what our podcast is about. We love what we do, and that's why we do it. I mean, some guys probably do it for the money, but again, every day it's therapeutic to me. Every day when I fix a car and I see the joy on someone's face after I fix the car, they can't put a price tag.
Man,
but I'm fortunate enough we do well. We do good for ourselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, a laborer is worth his wages, right? I mean, you earn that money honestly. And, I cashed every check the Airforce ever sent me.
Right.
Right. But like something that I've imparted to my kids is if you are of sound-minded body, you have a responsibility to provide for yourself.
Yeah.
If your passion is this pursuit, but you have to rely on other taxpayers to subsidize your lifestyle, you need to change it.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot be a burden on other people if you are a sound-minded body. I said, but outside of that, if you can pursue something for which you have passion and it pays you enough to live, or you can do something that you don't really care for or maybe despise that pays you 10 times as much, you won't regret following your passion.
Yeah.
And people will sometimes almost dismissively say something like when they find out like what I did, like, well, what do you do? Like, well, like I'm only an accountant. And I'm like, because maybe we just had a conversation about something like that. And my perspective is that if you are a person who believes in something being a higher calling, it doesn't matter what that particular thing is. You will find a way to pursue it in such a way that makes a positive impact on somebody's life. Just like you said, somebody comes to you with a problem with their vehicle. Did they pay to fix it? Yep. Did you unapologetically cash a check? Yep. But did you do it in a way that actually made them feel better?
Yeah.
Like, were they happy to have done business with you?
Right.
And so I just encourage anybody, man, don't discount what you do as if it can't serve something beyond
That's a good statement, man.
An important paycheck.
Yeah, a couple of Facebook users like that. Man. Again, Shawn, I brought you on today. I've been watching you like for the past year. I kept up with you on social media. Of course, we saw each other over the summer. We caught up and stuff, and I really didn't know I didn't know you were doing the keynote speaking and started your own company. And but what I wanted to bring you on our show for was to kind of, so in a nutshell, let me break down our industry. Our industry, and of course, some guys will have a different opinion, but you got you got guys that chase storms. They're called hail chasers. So they basically go on the road, they network, they fix hail cars for insurance companies and such, and dealerships. You have that technician, and the second tier is, it's not really tiers, but there's the other thing is what I do is I'm a route guy. So basically, I'm in my hometown, and I maybe go to other towns around me, and I get some body shop accounts or dealerships, or and we just kind of service these with a phone call, So the hail chaser guy more than likely probably works on his own. He's a contractor. The route part of the business, basically, I've hired guys. I had 4, 5, 6 guys on my team at some point. Now, the other thing that's kind of it's been done, but now it's kind of booming is have your own retail shop. So that's what I've done in Jeffersonville, as you know, and so now I have a shop and I have a office manager, and I've got people that are contractors through me, and now I've got a team. So, and at some points in my life that I have questioned myself as a leader. I've questioned, am I doing this the right way? being fair? Am I being stern enough? And
Yeah.
these are things that and I think if me telling you this, I think or my audience would like to know, like, if, you know, I know there's not a secret sauce, but is there a way to become a better leader running maybe a retail shop or a route or?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So, you know, a few obligatory, you know, caveats. I have not invented any new leadership principle. I don't think that there's been a new leadership principle invented in probably 2,000 years.
Right.
Because while technology changes, the nature of how we work changes, the industry changes, people don't change. You know, you pick up a book written by Shakespeare 400 years ago or written before Christ, whether it's Greek, Roman, the Old Testament, and you're going to see stories about the same basic human conditions, right? Because the human condition is immutable. It just does not change. And so I will tell you that most of what I did learn about leadership usually was the hard way. Like after I did try it a different way, like I tried to invent a really cool way to solve a problem. Then when it blew up in my face, had a chance to reflect and figure out, oh, well, okay. Oh, look, hey, this idea, this 2,000 years old would have worked. So I would maybe encourage people to think of it in terms of nouns and verbs, right? So a noun might be leader, or it might be boss, supervisor, manager, CEO, right? Is the title. Okay? But most of what makes an effective leader is rooted in the verb and how well they're doing it. You know, do they guide, direct, admonish, inspire? I mean, leadership is about action. It's not about, you know, title. It's not about, you know, the proverbial corner office. And so there's any number of people that are constantly writing new books. They're packaging old ideas in a new way to talk about leadership. I think sometimes it can be overcomplicated when in reality it's fairly straightforward, which is, for me, my approach to leadership is looking at it as a privilege and a responsibility to serve the people entrusted to my care. Some people may think, well, that sounds backwards. If you're the leader, what do you mean you're serving? Well, as a father, I have some degree, or at least I did when they were little, dominion over my children. But every day, all day, in some way, I was serving those kids. I am putting food on their table. I'm putting a roof over their head.
That is actually how I felt with my business personally. But yeah.
So, you know, when there is something that goes bump in the night, I don't send my kids out to the living room to see if it's an intruder, right? However, there was no doubt who the alpha apex predator was in that house. Like, there's no doubt. Like, in my house, the kids did not rule the roost. Sometimes they thought they did. But so when I say a leader is usually most effective when they are serving their people, what I mean is, if we are taking care of the people, they are probably taking care of the business, the operation, the mission. Now, depending on the size of the business, you know, doesn't mean that you don't have to sometimes roll your sleeves up and do the work. But the larger the operation and the more that other people are directly engaged in keeping the trains running on time, I found that it tended to work better if I made the people my mission. Okay, what do I need to do to make your life easier so that you can focus and employ your abilities to do your job? Which sometimes might mean doing things that they liked, and sometimes it might mean doing things they didn't. And again, I don't want people to think that I am equating being a dad over children to being a boss over people. But I can tell you, sometimes as a commander over pilots, the parallels were phenomenal. But I am best serving my son, let's say, when he's 9, when he gets out of line, and I correct that behavior. And I am willing to accept the fact that he is not going to like me for the next 12 hours because I'm not raising a boy. I'm supposed to be raising a man, and I need to serve him by doing this that he may not enjoy, because I believe that in the long run, that's going to be best for him.
Yeah.
And so, when I say that a leader should serve the people entrusted to their care, it doesn't mean you crawl around on your hands and knees and, run at their ever beck and call. That's not helping anybody.
No, not at all.
But there needs to be a time to be empathetic, to console, to counsel, to inspire, to develop, to mentor, to motivate. And there's a time to get knee deep in their ass when that is what is justified.
Sometimes
and that is what
it's necessary. Yeah. It's not a fun thing to do, but it's something you have to do sometimes.
Right. And because, on social media, I see a lot sometimes this idea that leaders are supposed to bend over backwards to create these authentic atmospheres of love and trust. I'm like, yeah, maybe sometimes that's appropriate.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea that we sometimes seem to push off to the side the idea of the leader as the tyrant, a leader who is equipped, if necessary, to employ the tool. I'll summarize it, maybe move on to the next one by saying this. I don't pretend for a moment to know exactly what you do and how you do it, but I bet your toolbox has more than a hammer, right? I bet that there is a wide variety of tools.
If you've seen a dent cart, you'll be shocked.
And so you, as an expert technician, you can size up the problem. And then based on your education experience, you go to the toolbox and you pull out the right tool for the right job.
I always call it like a golf. You grab the right club for the same situation.
As a leader, if you've only got one gear, if your gear is only, I just yell at them till morale improves, or I try to be their best friend because then no, man, if you are a leader, people aren't dense, but sometimes you can look at the situation and first analyze the context of the problem. Then as a leader, you need to go into your toolbox and there needs to be a pretty good selection. Okay. I need to be, I think I'll get off that analogy, but it's the same principle. Because sometimes leaders, we all have our own comfort, our default, like you probably have your favorite tool. Like there's probably one tool that you like, right? As leaders, we just have to be careful that we don't use and abuse and overuse the same leadership tool time and time again.
Eventually, I get it. It wears out.
And other situations may not require it, may not call for it.
Right. That's good. We had a couple listeners here to see. This gentleman, Dwayne Dean, says leadership isn't earned or given. You learn what not to do and what to do from good and bad. Stern but fair, honest and blunt. That's a good statement. Yeah. And Dwayne's also said something else. Dwayne says, listen to your guys, be empathetic, a problem solver, but don't get pushed over. Being a leader is hard in the civilian workforce. It's way different from military life. So maybe it's military also. Okay. Thanks, Dwayne. Appreciate the comment, buddy. Let's go back to that. But that's kind of what I was dealing with my business. I kind of question sometimes, man. I'd question myself. I was just like, am I being an asshole or am I being too soft? Am I being too nice? Because I do have nice guy syndrome. I suffer from that. But
there's worse vices to have.
Right. But and it's been challenging. And again, we had a lot of change last year in my business personally. And sometimes you have to make these changes. But I felt like I'm trying to be the best leader I can be. Also, Shawn, to spin the wheels a little bit, kind of go off the leadership thing. We had talked about like negotiations earlier, and that's something big in our business too. And that's basically customer comes to you and we call it head trash. And a lot of it is we have head trash where we feel like, we're trying to price a dent and we want to get maximum dollar for this dent and we're sizing our customer up. But the head trash keeps you you assume that this person's not going to pay for this, not going to value what you do. I know you speak a little bit about negotiation. Is there anything you can bounce off with that kind of?
Yeah. So again, there's so many different dynamics when it comes to a negotiation. And typically we're thinking in terms of the exchange of something of monetary value for money. You negotiate the price of a car, the price of a house, right? The price of employment. Now we know that negotiation can be a little broader than that, but in that example, sometimes it can come across like chicken bones and voodoo. Like there's no like rigid scientific way to approach. Like, how do I throw a price tag on this? Unless you're dealing with commodities where there's a market. Like I know that the price of crude today is $80 a barrel or whatever. So what I encourage people, just a general rule, is that we can't always talk our way to an agreement, but sometimes we might be able to look and listen our way to one. And so a previous comment that somebody threw up talked about the value of empathy. And, empathy doesn't necessarily mean let's sit down and watch our favorite Hallmark movies over a box of tissue and cry it out. It just means a deliberate and intentional approach to try to understand both intellectually and emotionally where the other person is coming from. And that takes effort. And even with the effort, it takes practice. When I'm teaching courses on negotiation, depending on how much insight you may have into the other person's position, there comes a point where it's gray, it's black. You don't know, and you just have to make an informed judgment and think, okay, what would I be willing to do this for? Because you might think, I bet they would do it for this. I bet they would do it for, let's say, $1,000. I would actually do it for 600. So what do I say? What do I say? And that is just going to come down to a judgment call.
I think fear is the word you can kind of use with head trash. Sometimes you get fear. You're scared that, what's their reaction going to be when I tell them this price, and sometimes you just we try to, like me personally, my business, I want to be Ruth Chris. I want to be Jeff Ruby's. I don't want to be McDonald's, and most dent guys are on that level too. They're like, hey, I value what I do. I do good work. The negotiation, like for me, and I'm just throwing my 2 cents out. I got rid of that fear. I did. I finally said, this is where I'm going to be. And I'm going to tell them, I'm going to sell it. You have to be a salesman, you have to sell it. And, you just kind of fill your customer out, kind of spar, I like to say, not really actually spar with them, but kind of spar a little bit and see what they're willing to give. And, that's how I did. I read, I'll take one more, please.
Gotcha.
Yep. Thank you. I read a book called Never Split the Difference. Actually, I listened to it and say I read it. I was in band. I do a lot of that.
I get it.
That was a great book. If you guys haven't read that, I cannot remember the author. Bach, is that right? Peter? I can't remember the name. Never Split the Difference. Great book. I should have had the information to tell everybody, but he was a hostage negotiator. And really helped with, it helps with sales. It was a really good book. Opened my eyes up for some things. So,
No, that's, especially if you are relatively new in the business, like if you have just hung your shingle, now it's your name, it's your company. I went through that when I started as a professional keynote speaker.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where
Dwayne's
people would ask, okay, well, we're interested in having you. Our executive vice president saw you speak at this association that they attended. We'd like to have you. How much do you charge? And my response is almost always like, well, what is your budget? Because
well, you got to fill your customer out too.
That's right.
Not everybody wants to eat a steak.
If I'm working with a Fortune 100 company, and this is let's say an annual all hands on deck for directors and above, flying in from across the country, and there's going to be 400 people there, and I can do some quick back of the envelope math and figure out, okay, between the salaries that they're giving up for a day, airfare, hotels, this is $100,000 expense. Okay, I've got a rough order of magnitude to price it. when it's a local nonprofit that wants me to keynote a fundraiser where they're hoping to raise $10,000 for some cause, okay, well, I can give the exact same speech basically on back-to-back days and charge 2 wildly different prices. Because in one case, they can afford it. In another case, they can't.
Yeah.
And so then I just have to decide, okay, is it still worth doing, for this customer? But learning to say no is really hard.
It is.
It's hard.
Right.
And it's early on, I was like, I spoke for free quite a bit, early on just to get some traction.
Yeah.
But there comes a certain point where, like, okay, you kind of look around. What are other people that are kind of like me making at comparable events? And it takes some detective work, but you can figure it out.
Yeah.
Within a 20-30% accuracy range.
Yeah. Well, so Shawn, appreciate that conversation. So now your business, ShawnDawley.com, you are now doing motivational speaking, keynote, as we just talked about. So you've actually done one of my local dealerships that I've actually done work for. We'll give a shout out, Pull Chevrolet. And you spoke with them and they wanted to talk about like sales and things like that. So kind of go into your speaking, like when you. Yeah. So, one thing as a speaker, you can't try to be all things to all people, right? If I were to say, okay, world, I can speak to every audience about every topic under the sun. If that were true, at best, it would probably not be a very profound, deep message, right? There are other speakers, man, like they only talk about a very specific niche issue to a very specific audience. Right.
So I broadly speak about leadership and team dynamics to organizations, usually between 50 and 5,000 folks, right? And so what I do is, let's say that you're hiring me. Like, let's say that you've got 300 people coming to some event and you want me to be the speaker.
Okay.
I would say, okay, well,
Tech Expo.
I need to know 3 things. Who is the audience? How much time do I have? And what is one issue that is important right now? Okay. So you might say it's 300 people, primarily technicians and business owners in this industry. You've got 45 minutes, and what would be an issue that might be relevant to this group? I'm asking, what might
for
just
dent repair,
speaking.
I think dent repair would be negotiation we just talked about, and then leadership of a team. Because again, some guys they're just one man shows and they do this.
Sure.
But now we're getting into like auto spot stuff. Like we're getting into like some guys are opening shops up. They're doing window tinting. They're doing ceramic coating. They're doing different things. Some guys are stepping away from not even fixing anything, and they're just running the business.
Okay.
And you've got a secretary, you got an office manager, you got salespeople. I mean, it turns into now you're running a real business. Like you're not just a dude with tools in your back of your truck and fixing dents.
So what I'm kind of hearing is that people are transitioning in some cases, let's say. There's a difference between starting out, scaling up, and sustaining an operation, right? Those are going to take 3 different skill sets. And so with that in mind, if you tell me I got 45 minutes to those 300 people to talk about that, I then figure out, all right, well, if that is the challenge or the defined problem, what would success look like? And then that becomes the North Star of my keynote. I reverse engineer from there.
I see. That's interesting.
And, to make it effective, it's usually about 75%, inspirational, and then 25% educational. Like there has to be a tangible takeaway. If you just get everybody all hyped up and energized, but there's no vector, how valuable is that really?
Yeah.
And so what I find is something that typically works well is once we decide, okay, what's the main theme that we're driving towards? there's probably some degree of apprehension or fear or skepticism around that.
Mhm.
So then I go into the memory banks and I pull out stories, firsthand accounts of mine that kind of validate the concerns of the
Mhm.
audience. And then B, I can share some specific lessons and takeaways that are applicable, to that issue. I've seen guys like me get up on stages and give 45 minutes of like cool guy stories.
Yeah.
Where they save the day, whatever. And true stories, interesting stories,
Mhm.
entertaining stories. But people are busy, man. People that are at a conference that are sitting down, if I'm going to spend 45 minutes of their life that they're not going to get back, I need to honor them and give them something
Mhm.
that is relevant to them.
Some value.
Who gives a crap what I have to say, right?
Mhm.
As soon as the mic goes hot and the lights get bright, I know for a fact I am the least important person in the room.
Mhm.
And I believe that to my very bones.
Yeah.
The most important people in the room are the people in the chairs.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't ever show up with a, dust off the same speech. It always needs to
Right.
be
It's got to be fresh.
tweaked and tailored and modified to fit that group,
Mhm.
because that group is going to have slightly nuanced issues from the last group. I may have talked about the same topic, but I have to talk about it in a way that resonates with the people that are in front of me at that venue.
That's
not the
awesome,
last
man.
one.
Yeah. That's just genuine, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So you started speaking in large groups, and
Yeah.
is there any like is there any like embarrassing moments you've had speaking to a large group of people? Or anything
So man,
weird
knock
happen?
on wood, brother. Knock on wood. There's a fear there, right? So
Yeah.
some people may or may not believe this, but as God is my witness, I am still more nervous getting up in front of a group of 20 than I ever was flying combat missions. Some people may also not believe that I still have like performance anxiety. Like some people,
I think we all get that, man.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
when you step off a stage, like let's say where I just talked to 2,500 people,
Mhm.
invariably somebody will come up and be like, "Oh my gosh, like I wish I could be just as calm and as confident up there." And I share with them. I said, "Well, just so you know,
Mhm.
I tossed and turned a couple times last night. In the hour leading up to me taking the stage, I took a piss 4 times because of my nerves. And when they were reading my bio and about to introduce me, a little part of me was thinking, I hope somebody pulls the fire alarm so I can run out of here."
Right. I mean, I get it, man. I get it.
But then once I get up to do what I'm going to do, because I am prepared,
Mhm.
and because my priority is not on my performance, it is on the people in the seat,
Mhm.
it always works out.
Yeah.
It always works out.
Yeah.
And again, the carryover was, I made peace years ago that on any given day, on any given sortie, training or combat, it could be the weather conspires against me, the terrain conspires against me, the plane conspires against me. If that is how I meet my maker, I made peace with that.
Mhm.
I was not going to die because I was unprepared.
Yeah.
I was never going to fail because I had not done my homework. And so when I approach a public speaking event, to maybe kind of reiterate my last series of comments, you guys can always make more money, but you can't make more time.
That's true.
And I am being given the privilege to spend the one finite resource that you have that you will never get back.
Yeah. Right.
And so if I don't show up prepared to honor this privilege, then I deserve for that embarrassing thing to happen. Whatever that thing is, I only hope that whatever embarrassing thing befalls me, it happens when I deserve it.
Could you imagine just being the comic and going up and no one laughing at your jokes? That would be the worst.
Yeah, well, it's it can be hard to read an audience sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes,
exactly. Just stupid analogy, but karaoke. Okay. When I don't know, you've never seen me do it, but I karaoke before, right?
Yeah.
First time I ever did, I was terrified. I was like, what in the hell? I remember one time I karaoke, 200 people were probably in the room. And
now, were you trying to be?
I got a standing ovation.
Okay, so you were actually trying.
So that gave me the confidence,
and
so now I can walk into any bar in America. I've karaoke at the Catch Me Out in New Orleans, Vegas. I've karaoke at some legendary places, and you're right. It depends on the crowd. Sometimes they're not into what you're doing, and it's so it's just a small analogy, but I get what you're saying.
I mean, there's like I don't know at what age I will not ever require any amount of external validation. It's not 50. I mean, when I'm speaking to
we got sport comments.
When I'm speaking to a crowd, there is something reassuring when I'm surveying the masses that at least a couple people are like nodding and smiling, like they're tracking with what I'm saying. Because there can be sometimes when I've misread the crowd. I thought, boy, they are not tuned into this at all. And it happened to be on a couple of occasions when I was, delivering some remarks that had, they were somewhat profound, let's say, using some stories that don't always have happy endings.
Right. Yep.
And it wasn't until people told me afterwards that, in a nutshell, their lack of real-time engagement was actually masking the fact that they were riveted by what I was saying. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and so sometimes you can, when you're giving a keynote, you can actually be killing it because you've got them. Like they are on the same wavelength, but they've got poker faces. And you
don't know.
And you feel like you're standing up there naked.
Right.
Because that's the worst feeling in the world. Like you're up on a stage and you're like, oh gosh, man, is this almost done?
I never spoke, like, obviously I've never done it at the level you've done it, but I've spoke to a room of 30 maybe. And I feel like the best thing to do is look at the wall and just, I don't know. That's just something I just naturally did that. No one told me.
Yeah. So that's
or you find that one person that's looking at you nodding their head. Yeah. That's the guy you want. That's who you're talking to.
That's right. Because, Shawn's, humble tips on public speaking, right? Again, this is the kid I can remember, like in 7th grade, like staring down at the paper, like watching the sweat land and blurring the ink of my nose. I mean, like people who think that, like, oh, you were born for this. Bull crap. No, this has been a slog, to get to this.
Yeah.
So I for me feel like if I can find a handful of people that are around the room who seem to be engaged, I make those people the anchor point. So as I'm working my eyes around the room, okay, this lady in the front third off to the left is always like eye contact engaging. Okay, boom. She's the hub that I'll go to, and then I'll spoke out from there. The gentleman in the back far right corner, he's always nodding. So I'll try to find people around the room that I can go to. And so it creates the illusion that I'm looking at everybody.
Right.
But I'm basically looking for my whoopee. I'm looking for my comfort blanket out in the crowd.
Exactly.
And the reason I choose to look at people personally and not look over their heads, which is a fairly common technique that people teach to new speakers. Hey, if you feel like the crowd is overwhelming, look above their heads. I need to look at people because, like, just even like right now, like looking at you, like I feel like I'm having a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm intellectually aware that there are people watching us through the camera, and I'm also aware that this will be recorded and uploaded, but it feels more natural. And I feel like I do a better job on the stage when I feel like I'm having actually a somewhat intimate dialogue with people in the crowd.
Right.
But as soon as I see the guy that's got his arms crossed with a scowl on his face,
you're like,
I black over that dude.
Yeah.
I blank him out. I don't go back, because if I stare at him too long, I'll start to think, oh, crap, man, Am I messing this up?
Right. Well, a lot of, we're going into that. Like there's, again, at our trade show we were at a couple weeks ago called Mobile Tech Expo in Orlando. A lot of, industry leader guys. I don't want to call myself that. Obviously, someone else needs to say that about myself. But we have guys that are industry leaders, and they would get up and speak a lot. We have education day on Thursday. So basically, you go to seminars, and they did a fantastic job. These guys are professional motivational speakers. They're like, hey, I'm a dent guy, and I'm going to stand up in a room full of 100 people, 200 people. One room, I was in one room with literally 200 people. Wanting to understand how to run a shop better. Yeah. And they did a fantastic job. I mean, they had projector board behind them. They were, I mean, they definitely put some effort into it, but they did a fantastic job, and kudos to them. And
and certainly, I'm going to guess that they know their business, they know their job, they know their craft. Yeah. And I'm going to also probably speculate that they have some degree of passion for it.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you are just of average communication ability, but you are talking about something you care about and something you're knowledgeable about, you will come off very well to the audience. If you were to ask me to go give a 45-minute lecture on astrophysics, it would be the worst 3/4 of an hour of your life, because I'd be up there tap dancing.
Look at my hands.
Right. But get somebody on a subject and give them some time to prepare.
Yeah.
There is some.
There is some
art.
The more you put into it, obviously, the better the result. Obviously, with anything, but
of course.
Yeah.
But I bet those guys didn't walk up there thinking, what am I going to talk about?
No.
I bet they walked up.
And you know what I thought was brilliant? And we're talking about the round table discussion. It was a particular seminar at the MTE. I was there. I started in the back. I actually worked my way up to the front. It was 4 guys instead of 1 because each individual guy ran a shop differently. So it was a great perspective. They were bouncing off each other, answering questions, really good questions in the audience. It was amazing. And I felt like, and that's why I wanted to bring you on today, Shawn. When I was there, I was like, we didn't really touch on leadership, like how to run a business, or what to do in this situation, or they talk a little bit about pricing and negotiations and stuff. But I mean, we're heading more into that realm as far as running, like I said, running a real business compared to just a guy in a pickup truck fixing dents on a parking lot, and that's why, like, I reach out to people that I know personally, even here in locally, to bring them into our industry with some input. And I knew you were a motivational keynote speaker, so I definitely wanted to bring you on today and give your 2 cents on things. So,
Sure.
Yeah. You bet. Yeah. So, I'll tell you what, Shawn, let's keep going. I know we're at an hour. Usually we quit an hour, but first, man, I got to tell you, we got to pay the bills.
Okay.
Magic Mind. Check out Magic Mind, guys. You're listening to the show. You want something real, man? Quit drinking those energy drinks. They're terrible. I used to be an addict. Quit. Monsters, whatever. Shouldn't say their name online. But anyways, go to magicmind.com for /real world. You can get World Order 20 is your coupon code. You can get 20% off on a one-time buy, up to 50% cents off your first subscription for the next 10 days. I'll put everything in the show notes, okay? Because I can't talk right now. And anyways, Magic Mind. Check it out, guys. I've been drinking it. I was going to give you, Shawn, a bottle of it. But my girlfriend drank all of it because it was so good. So literally, you can, if you have your coffee in the morning, you take this stuff. It's kind of, I can't say the other product's name it's compared to, but it's a focus thing. It's kind of more, you get a little bit of an energy boost, more of a focus. I started taking it. I love it, man. I mean, it tastes good. They also have I'm getting ready to get another product from them. It's not like melatonin, but it's more of a sleep aid. I'm going to try that out as well. So guys, go to magicmind.com, real world order. And again, use that coupon code World Order 20 to get 20% off a one-time buy, up to 50% cents off your first subscription for the next 10 days. All right, guys, check that out. So anyways, Shawn, it's that time.
Okay.
This is Jim's favorite part. Again, guys, let me tell you where we're at. We're at Louisville Thoroughbred Society. I did not mention that earlier in the show. This is a beautiful, fantastic place. I'm a member. Shawn's been here a few times. Really want to give a shout out to these guys. They are great hosts. They basically gave us this beautiful room to do the podcast in, serving us good food and drinks. So yeah, shout out to Louisville Thoroughbred Society. So Jim didn't make the show tonight, Shawn. Sorry, he's great. I want you to meet him, but he had prior things going on. So it's time for 5 stupid ass questions. A lot of viewers, this is their favorite part of the show, even though all the education bombs we dropped just now.
Okay, all right.
But are you ready, man?
Yeah, let's see where this goes. All right.
Okay, they're not too bad tonight. Okay. So they're pretty good. Okay. So, Shawn, question 1. Do you have a favorite coffee mug, and what is on it?
I do. I do.
Do you drink it with your magic mind after?
God, I hate to drop the H-bomb here, but
oh Lord, here we go.
It was from Harvard. Earlier, you said I was a Harvard graduate. That's not true. I couldn't have snuck onto Harvard's campus right out of high school. But years later, when I was a mature, responsible, upstanding, tax-paying citizen, the DOD ponied me up to go back or to go to Harvard to be a resident called National Security Fellow.
Okay.
So I was assigned there to the School of Public Policy, helping people, breathing some reality into the world that they were.
Well, I mean, I appreciate your honesty. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
That's right. But no, so I was not a student. It was kind of the other way around.
Yeah.
I was on the faculty and staff.
Okay. Okay.
So I have a mug from there. I'm a cheapskate, right? You know how cheap I am.
We talked about this
on
the boat. Yeah.
So I have that mug that I bought. It's the logo on it though is kind of jacked up. Yeah. Because I bought it at the official, it's called the Crimson Co-op or whatever. Everything in there's way overpriced. Yeah. This one, it was on the scratch and dent shelf. So it was $4.
So the Harvard scratch and dent coffee.
Yeah. So the one token memento I've got from there, I bought on a discount because it was jacked up. But that's usually what I drink out of. And it reminds me that, I was the same kid that barely graduated high school.
Right.
So
man, that's cool shit, dude. For me, I got one for Christmas, and I don't drink coffee. I am now drinking Mio in the morning now with Magic Mind, and it's Dog Dad. Yeah.
Okay.
My girl. We all know my girlfriend, the beautiful Danielle Monday. She has a beautiful dog named Baby. When I got into the relationship, we had a 5-year dog, and now I'm in love with this dog. This dog is amazing. And my sister bought me this coffee mug. It says Dog Dad on it. So I'm now giving coffee a chance. I'm kind of getting back. I kind of go in and out of coffee, and I quit drinking energy drinks. Done with that shit. So, Anyways, let's go on to question 2, man. All right. Oh, God, I know I'm going to tell this story. See, I get time to think about this stuff. You don't.
Yeah, it's great.
When was the last time you completely lost it? If you need time to think, I can go.
Yeah, no, I know exactly when it was. Okay. I know exactly when it was. Now, keep in mind that I teach leadership as a profession, right? And I weave into all of my curriculum, regardless of the specific topic. I weave in a good, healthy dose of what we would call emotional intelligence. Okay. Humans, we are wired to feel before we think. That is a neuroanatomical reality. So as the guy who teaches, hey, you're going to feel things, but make sure you think before you act. I was driving down to deer camp during the season. So it would have been mid-November, late November. Mm-hmm. And county road, nobody's around except a truck who's right up on me. Now I'm doing probably 62 and a 55.
Okay.
And that's as fast as I want to go.
Yeah.
It's rainy. It's kind of dark.
6-7 miles. Yeah.
And dude's riding my bumper. Oh, so finally we get to a spot on the road where we can, it splits. It goes to 2 lane for the turning lanes that I'm now in to go to the left. Man, he comes right up alongside of me and lays on his horn and acts like he's going to drive it into
road
me.
rage stuff going on. Yeah.
And so, again, I had just turned 50. I'm a retired Airforce officer, former corporate executive, and man, I'm not proud of how I reacted. between the gestures and the language. I mean, I went straight from 0 to silverback in like a nanosecond. And I thought, how pathetic is this? at this point in my life, that some jackass like this could still get inside my head. Yeah, man.
He's living rent free, man.
I'm a work in progress. Yeah, dude, I came unglued. I mean, it was so bad. Like, well, I'll leave it at that. Let's just say, like I said,
you probably handled yourself.
Let's just say I was not proud. Yeah. I'm glad that there were no witnesses or videography to memorialize that moment. Because the things that came out of my mouth, like to him, you know.
You're like, this guy, like, really, you know, this day, a guy you would pass on the street and I had, you know, no quarrels with, or maybe not even never had. For me, I think I may, because I do this, man. I repeat stories. I'm a very calm, easygoing guy. I've always been that way. I'm not a hothead. I don't fight people on a whim. A couple years ago, I was at a bar with my girlfriend, and we were invited by friends to sit at a table. I knew the couple that invited us. I did not know the other 3 people that were there. Gentleman was there. He was very intoxicated, heavy set for visual guy. He was drinking beer, and he very loud, like a loudmouth guy. Didn't like him from what he was putting off. And I sat there, you know, like a champ. I was just hanging out, being cool, you know. And he decided that he was going to hit on my girlfriend in front of me. I mean, so he basically said, he looked at me and he looked at her and he said he goes, I don't care. This is this quote, I don't care if your boyfriend's sitting there, but I'm going to tell you, you're hot. That didn't get me. That made me mad, but I thought it was kind of stupid of what he said. What got me was, and I'm not going to say what he said, but he said something very inappropriate to her right after that. And I lost my shit, basically. And and in that moment, you see red. And I said, all right. In my mind, I'm like, what do I do? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to slam my beer bottle on the table. And I'm going to say, babe, we need to go. And I said, babe, let's leave. And we basically walked out of the bar. And I said, no, not today. I'm going to tell him how I feel. So we walked away. I should have just left. I turned around. I went back and I said, like, blah, 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 blah. You're an asshole. Blah, 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 blah. And walked away. Now I wasn't done. So I went back and told him more. I said, meet me outside like a gentleman. Wow. Anyways, long story short, nothing happened. End of story. You know, I walked outside. I was heated. Walked outside, and I think about it after an hour. I was like, dude, you should have just left from the moment. You know, the guy, it's not worth it. It's not, you know, honestly, Danielle didn't even hear what he said. She was engaged in a conversation. She didn't even care what he said. Yeah,
but sure. Yeah. But on some level,
going to jail and fighting for whatever.
Of course. Yeah. But so that's one of those, okay, that works on 2 levels. On one, the chivalry in you wants to take up for a comment directed towards the woman with whom you were with. But the other way is he's basically trying to, you know, displace me. You know, so you're taking that one personal. So, you know, that's a pretty common phenomenon and response. And as you're describing the guy, everybody is thinking, we all know this guy.
We know this guy.
We all know this guy.
So then I found out this guy, because we know the owner of the restaurant, the place we're at, he said this guy is a troublemaker and this happens all the time. And he was shocked that I was actually sitting at the same table with him. So that explained everything. So friends that were there, he said I was drunk. I want to apologize to me. Okay. And so whatever, you know, a good way to end the story. So, you know, but again, I'm not the guy that's going to throw fisticuffs as soon as I hear something. That's not my style. Never has been. I've always been a guy who don't like conflict or drama. So I normally avoid that. Okay. So, but I just wanted to, that's my story for this question. So these questions I generate them randomly. So I don't really know. So, all right. So John, if you're not embarrassed to ask, I'm going to ask you this one. Who's your current celebrity crush?
Gal Gadot.
Wow.
My wife knows that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Hers is Rob Lowe. Mine's Gal Gadot.
Okay. So me and my girlfriend, we have this similar relationship. We can, like last night I watched this awful horror movie called Thanksgiving. Patrick Dempsey was in it. She loves Patrick Dempsey. My girlfriend's an actress.
Was he McSteamy or
McSteamy? McSteamy,
okay,
yeah. So or whatever. Yeah, either way, whatever. So my celebrity crush. You watch Sports Center, right? Like ESPN.
Yeah, a little bit.
Have you watched ESPN Bet? Have you been into that stuff?
No.
Okay. So there's a girl they hire on ESPN named Erin Dolan. So I turned ESPN Bet on and I'm watching it one day and I'm like, Erin Dolan. My girl's like, what? Are you like doing bet? Are you doing bets on your phone? And
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I'm just watching Erin Dolan. So she jokes about it. We have fun with it, whatever.
So I mean, again, like I years ago, I think it was when she was in Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot. So I openly confided in my wife, like, I'm just letting you know right now, like that is my celebrity crush, and because a Hollywood celebrity may as well be from Mars. They're not somebody that's going to be in your orbit.
Yeah, right.
So maybe that dialed down the jealousy a bit, but I will tell you that my wife can say that, oh, I love Rob Lowe. I think he's so cute. And whatever, I really don't care.
Yeah, I don't either.
But when my wife hears me say, oh, I think Gal Gadot is my celebrity, hot little crush, she's like, yeah, I don't care about that. Like, it's like, yeah, I think
we ain't watching DC anymore.
I kind of feel like you might a little bit.
All right, Shawn, question 4. We're getting through these real quick. If you were to write a book about yourself, what would it be called? I actually have no answer to that. I didn't even think about that.
You don't have one?
No, I didn't even look at that one.
Golly, man. What would my autobiography?
I didn't even have an answer.
Because I'm tempted to go like I think my mind is going in 2 directions. One, I want to come up with a good, profound philosophical answer, and then the other one, I want to come up with something that's going to make you piss your pants and laugh.
Right, something critical.
Right, yeah, right.
Clever.
The Chronicles. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
That's a tough one. Yeah, if I wrote a book about myself, I mean, obviously, I don't know if we're on the same, started from the bottom, now we're here. That's a Drake song, but I grew up poor, and or I wouldn't say poor, but I grew up rough. We weren't silver spooned or nothing. No. So growing up, now we're sitting in thoroughbred society, having drinks and doing podcasts and going to Japan and say 8-9 months.
Man, I think
good life.
I tell you what, brother. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and give you one. I'm going to go ahead and give you one that is a little more philosophical. I think I would title it "Blessed."
Blessed. That's a good one.
Because of what you just said, right? I mean, there are any number of people living in parts of the world right now that would have gladly embraced my childhood. Right?
I went to Cuba. I get it. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but let's just say that my childhood was not exactly Norman Rockwell.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of death and abandonment. But I firmly believe that I hit the triple lottery at birth. I was born of sound mind and body to a mother who loved me in the greatest country on earth.
Right.
And I feel like if you are of sound mind and body with one person who loves you and you live in America, you've got everything you need. It won't be easy. It won't be easy, but that is enough.
Right.
So yeah, there you go, man.
I mean, there's obviously, there's other countries you can be born in, same thing, but America, yeah, we're very blessed, man. We're lucky. I thank my lucky stars every day. I mean, tragedies happen to people and, I don't get emotional and stuff, but yeah, I mean, man, we're lucky, man. Where we're at and what we can do, and we're given an opportunity to succeed. And, I mean, so.
Yeah, man, I'm all in.
Right. We're on the same set now, or same mindset. This is an easy one, man. What's your favorite movie of all time?
Star Wars.
Damn. That's not what I thought you'd say.
But let me guess. What did you think that I was going to say?
Top Gun.
Come on, man. Come on. Okay. Because you brought it up, I will concede. Yeah. Top Gun is probably.
Did you like Maverick?
So both of them are probably 2 of my top 5 favorite comedies of all time.
Okay.
So,
well, you've lived
I will
that
say,
life. So.
as an Air Force
Yeah.
guy, I'm not parochial. I'm not the guy that thinks.
If I was a Jedi, I would say that about Star Wars, but I wasn't. So, yeah.
I do not look down on the other branches. I really don't.
No.
Right? I believe in all branches. I believe that all branches serve a purpose, but for the record, Navy is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
And so Top Gun was based in the Navy. So, but then again, the Air Force came out with Iron Eagle 2.
Oh,
yeah.
That was Carl Weathers.
No. Luke Gossett Jr.
Luke Gossett Jr. Yeah, you're right.
That was a very poor attempt to go head to head with the Navy's Top Gun. But no, man, those movies actually were entertaining.
Yeah.
I put on my Siskel and Ebert hat for a moment. I feel like the original Top Gun was a drama that used action to move the plot. I feel like the new Top Gun, they shot 90 minutes of action. It's okay now. How do we put a plot, to this?
That was exactly what they did.
And as a military aviator, it's probably like a police detective watching like CSI or Law and Order. You just kind of you just got to like tune out bullcrap, right? There were more than a few scenes in both Top Guns. I'm like, wrong, no. But like, look, man, just enjoy your popcorn. It's Star Wars.
Dude, I'm a Star Wars nut. Like, really?
How old are you?
I'll be 49 next month.
Okay, all right. So I'm older than you. All right, so if you're people our age, Star Wars was a big part of your childhood, right? Because we didn't grow up with like streaming on demand.
No,
if you
went to the
see
theater to watch theater,
right? Yeah. And so just that sort of like epic Greek tragedy that played out in space, the idea of good versus evil, and then like you put that in the time frame. It was during the height of the Soviet Empire before they finally crumbled. I mean, there's like these like contextual elements. I love Star Wars. I think they've kind of.
I've been a freak since I was a kid. I had toys and. Remember going to see Empire Strikes Back at the theater. I was very young to see the first one.
Yeah.
But I saw that and Return of the Jedi at the theater. That was awesome, man. Like, I gotta bring this up. How do you feel about the Disney Star Wars stuff? Is it anything for you?
No, man. So at this point, I'm along for the ride. Yeah. Now, do I read the Star Wars comic books? Do I read the Star Wars books? I do not. Yeah. I had a hard time really getting into some of like the serials like Mandalorian or some of the offshoots. Okay. But whenever the next movie comes out that is part of that line of Star Wars movies, I will see it the first week.
Right.
Because I'm so far invested in it. I have to know. I have to know how somebody is going to render it. But I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, but I mean, I feel like they've taken a golden franchise and kind of mismanaged it a little bit.
I mean, it is the almighty dollar kind of pushes things.
Well, sure.
But I wasn't mad at Rogue One. Did you watch Rogue One?
I thought Rogue One was excellent.
Brilliant. But
I thought Rogue One is probably.
I ain't mad at it, man. It was brilliant. It was one of the best. It was top 5 Star Wars movies.
I personally would probably rank Rogue One behind Empire Strikes Back. My personal,
it was pretty good.
It was that good?
Yeah. I watched like the Ahsoka and I watched Mandalorian's. I like it, but it's commercialized. It's for the kids. We're selling Baby Yoda and Grogu, and we're selling that.
It sells Halloween costumes.
Yeah,
it sells toys.
It's making money. I mean, I get it. It's a business. But, man, if they do this Knights of the Republic or the Knights of the Republic we're talking about doing, I think that's going to be fantastic. So,
no, I'm in, man. I'll be there. I'll be there for all of them.
So we've turned the RWO into a Star Wars talk show. So we've talked about leadership, negotiation, and Star Wars. That's what you guys learned today. All right, Shawn, I got to wrap this shit up, man. Thank you for coming on, bro. Appreciate your service. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Just being a friend, man. So, all right, guys, let me give a shout out to our sponsors. RealWorldPDR.com, the industry's hottest training site. Respect the crowns. DentMatePro.com, your simple solution for invoicing and estimating. You guys in Australia, don't forget about dentmate.com.au. It's It'll make you more Aussie dollars. And Magic Mind. Don't forget about Magic Mind, guys. I'll put the link in the show for that awesome coupon code. So, all right, guys. Shawn, thank you again for coming on. And we'll see you guys. Thank you. RWO for life.